Igual a ver si le mandas el link, ya estamos.
¿Ya habló?
Ajá.
Hola amigos, bienvenidos a Conversaciones de Altura. Esta ocasión va a ser una ocasión en inglés, bueno, un capítulo, un episodio en inglés porque nuestro amigo, quien ya ven en pantalla, solo habla inglés, pero muy amablemente aceptó platicar con nosotros. Es un amigo muy querido. So thanks everyone who's watching. Welcome to a new episode of Conversaciones de Altura. We are so happy about our next guest. He is one of my favorite human beings in the world. I love this guy. But before I introduce him, I want to introduce my main man, Andres, who's behind the wheels. This episode, he will most likely talk to and ask some questions. ¿Cómo
Thanks
estás?
for thanks for accepting, Brian.
Oh,
Uh,
thanks for having me.
and there you go, my main man, Brian Herf. How are you, buddy?
I'm awesome. Excited to be here. Excited to be talking to you. I miss you, buddy. We don't get to see each other long enough or often enough. You know what I mean?
No, I know, man. Before we go on, would it be possible if you share the link to the show, because I think people are asking, oh, where's the link?
I'll do that. Yeah, hold on.
Well, before we go on, I'm gonna talk a little bit about Brian
Can
and
I do it from right in the app, or do I have to do it from Messenger?
through your Facebook, I think.
Okay, hold on. Let me do that real quick because I know there was people trying to turn in.
Yeah, no, I know people having wanted.
Hold on.
I can let me. Okay, I'll send you a message through Messenger. Sorry, people, but this is how we do it, DIY style. And okay, before I go on,
No, that's to a group. Do I just copy it and put it on my page, or what? Is that what I'm doing?
I send you the link on Messenger.
Yeah, I got to figure out how to copy it, and I'm sorry.
Okay,
Copy
no,
link
don't worry.
address.
But let me introduce
How do I
again.
put it on my page or reply or what?
Let's.
No.
Yeah, no, just copy the link. Let me see. I love this. I think I can paste it on your wall. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was trying to do. That's why I didn't know if you wanted me to just
There you
put it on
go.
my wall or
Yeah, it's on your timeline now, so people can.
Yeah. So I don't need to do anything.
No, don't worry about it. Just talk and enjoy the ride, and take some vitamin
I'm
D.
trying to find back to the meeting we're in here.
Okay. Don't worry.
I lost the Zoom meeting, I guess. No, wait, there it is.
You're still on the air. There you go.
Okay. There we go. And we're back.
Yeah. So I love it, man. I love it.
This is really going well.
Yeah, it is. It's part of the DIY, man.
Right. You know I'm all about that.
Yeah,
so what was the first part in Spanish? Just explain to everyone that I'm not smart enough to speak Spanish, so we have to do it in English.
Yeah, kinda. No, yeah. I didn't say that. I think you are a really smart person, but no, I was letting people know that you don't speak Spanish, but you probably
No, my Spanish is atrocious.
You do speak French, right?
Oh, not very well. Depends on who you ask, I guess.
But I've been lucky enough to travel to parties with you.
You and I believe, were the French speakers on our crew the last time that we were in.
Yes.
In actual France.
There.
Me and you.
Yeah, definitely. So before we go on, let me introduce you.
Yeah, sure.
You are one of the baddest motherfuckers I ever met. You are a front of house, a guitar tech before we started record or doing this live, we were talking that you were supposed to be in Europe right now with System of a Down.
That's if we all still had jobs, you know. I don't know. I feel like a lot of my friends that do the same thing that that we do, traveling or whatever for work. It's really hard because like one camp of people is to call with a plane ticket. Like we're all going back to work soon, but there's another whole camp of people I think that are starting to figure out that we're not going back for a while. You know, it's going to be a while before the touring industry, at least the way that we do it, or the way that we've known it.
Do you have any
Um,
expected dates for coming back to business? Or?
I don't even bother speculating about stuff like that. Like, there's a band I just took a gig mixing front of house for that I've only mixed one show for, that we're going to Primavera next year, I guess.
Oh shit!
That'll be cool.
Yeah.
But that's like next year, and it's like that's another one of those things. I'll believe it when I get a plane ticket. You know, it'll be
Yeah.
from that's called 100 Gex. Like if you're under 25, you know who they are, I'm sure.
No, we're not under 25.
Right. They did a show. They did a show a couple weeks ago that Michael and I and the kids watched from home, where they played a show in Minecraft. Where like to attend the show, you attended the show in Minecraft.
So Minecraft
game.
is like a video game, right?
Yeah, my kids were kind of floored. My kids were like, "How did you animate those sky zooms or whatever?" They were all talking
But did they like it?
about like how the world was. Oh, they loved it. Yeah. Well, Gex is great too, man. They're awesome. They're really freaking unique. It's I mean, it's one of those things that sometimes I'm listening to it and I'm like, oh God, I don't even get this, you know. And then it's like, oh, okay, I know I do get it a little bit, but it's also that just means it's cooler than I am because I'm old.
Well, so
yeah,
now,
it's 100 Gex.
yeah,
That's
for sure.
likely to be, you know, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I just nothing's going back. We're not going back to work until there's a vaccine. So whatever, you know, that's all negative stuff. I feel so. What I was talking about before is like some people I feel like are sitting around just waiting for for us to go back to work. But a lot of my friends have finally figured out now and are just kind of getting their hustle on, trying to figure out they need to. I feel like I have been really lucky to kind of start this new working on guitars from home thing.
Right.
Been awesome because I mean I love doing the work or whatever, but I've actually encouraged a couple of my other friends to do that too. So there's at least 2 other roadies that I know, maybe a third that might be starting up doing it, but just like doing the same thing, just setting up a little guitar shop action at home. And
yeah, for sure, man. Especially if you know the skill already,
well, that's what I'm saying. I'm very lucky that I had a skill that I could sort of pivot into all of a sudden being able to do something from home.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And then, very fortunate thing.
And you get to spend time with the kids, right? Because when you're on the road, that's like
right. But that's the thing. Like Michael and I used to talk about all the time that, like just the narrative before that other dads might be home all the time, but when they're, they don't get to hang out with their kids that much. And then when I would come home from the road, it was just like, let's just build some Legos and make some lunch and just hang out all the time. And with the other side of that coin is now it's like I'm home all the time.
Right.
But I'm kind of sitting at the guitar workbench, like to not work like 7 days a week, like 12 hours a day or whatever, just because that's not sustainable. But when I first started getting the guitar hustle on, it was like that, trying to keep up. And
yeah, for sure. Were you gonna ask something, Andres?
Trying to balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would be. I mean, I have a couple of questions, and maybe
I forget that there may or may not. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I just forget that there may or may not be watching this. So I feel like I'm just talking to you two, but I forget that. Like
that's awesome. Keep that mindset.
I'm sorry, Andres. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, well, I just wanted to know. I know it's kind of like a stupid question, but what's your job? What do you really what are your duties like in tour and like everyday work?
Way of putting it, like we say, is like we're I'm sort of a glorified valet. I think sometimes like the gentleman's way of saying is I looked after an artist.
Right.
That's the only way we look after artists. But I don't know. I do a lot of different stuff. Depends on the band. Every gig is different, and I think sometimes the job titles are kind of arbitrary because, especially in smaller camps, you end up kind of doing everything. Anyways, in bigger camps, everyone kind of stays in their lane more because there's more people trying to do more jobs or whatever. But I guess, yeah, I don't know. I play with guitars, and sometimes I load trucks and unload trucks, and sometimes I hang out in catering with my friends. That's part of the job too, I guess.
Yeah, for Sure, especially, and it's cool that you're talking about this because I think people outside this industry glorify like the touring way of life. Like they think everything is just gold and everything.
I know I definitely a lot of times will be talking to people when they'll say things like, "Oh man, I would love to just be on the road all the time, you know, like just spend all my time on the road." And I love being on the road. Don't get me wrong, but especially if it's people who haven't done it a bunch, just like be careful what you wish for sometimes, because like it's not a fully sustainable lifetime all the time in terms of just trying to keep yourself healthy and not lose your mind, but I
Yeah.
do love it. It's just sometimes sometimes
And
it can be a lot being gone a lot.
which
Yeah.
part do you
You know that.
dislike or you
You and
don't
I have
like the
played-
most?
Which part do I like the most?
No, you don't like the most. I mean, you dislike the
Oh,
most.
well, always think it's like the best answers to questions could be answered either way. It's like the part I like the most is the travel. Like I love like going to other countries, especially, and like meeting people and just like trying new stuff and seeing new places. And then you would ask like, what's the thing I like the least? And it's like, yeah, it's probably the travel, because like you just get tired of being gone all the time and like not hanging out in a hammock in your own backyard. So it's definitely the pandemic has, like you were saying, Joel, been a bitter and sweet thing. It's awesome to be home all the time.
Yeah,
I
it
guess
must be like
we all
a
take for
great
granted.
vacation.
Yeah. Well, it's
Long
definitely
vacation.
touring for work is definitely not a vacation. Sometimes it
No,
feels
no,
like
of course not. I'm saying right now.
sometimes it does, to be honest, feel like a vacation, but but it's definitely work. But now this, yeah, it kind of feels like a vacation being home. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and touring is, as you know, touring is not for everybody. Not everybody
It's
is
not, no, not everyone can do it.
or no, not everybody is.
I'm not even sure I
No, no, no. But I mean, I mean,
can
no
do it
technology.
well sometimes.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Sorry.
I think I lost connection there for a second. What was that, Joel?
Oh, I was saying that the road is not meant for everybody. Everybody's not meant to be on the road. It's difficult, man. You can't even poop on the bus, man. You have to wait.
No pooping on the bus. That's absolutely right. My friend Dusty Miller always used to say this thing that he would be, I'm going to tell a third-hand story. Ready for it? It's a Dusty Miller story. He like met or he got on like his first bus tour. I think it was the whole site or something, and was all excited. He went through, I think, somewhere in South Dakota where he had grown up, and his parents came to visit him, and he was like, the bus, like mom and dad, the bus. And he was all excited and kind of showing them around like everyone does with their family. And, like my kids, like my 9-year-old just loves being on the bus. He loves like hanging out in the bunk. But, Dusty's parents, he said, introducing him, and they showing around the bus. And his dad's like, so you live in like a 250 square foot apartment with 10 other dudes and you can't take a poop. I guess that's your thing or whatever. And that's like,
That's accurate.
I don't know. I steal his little line. I steal his dad's line all the time.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. It's true, right?
What's that?
I mean, it's true. You're sharing a bus with like 10 other smelly dudes.
I say to people all the time that there's a weird thing where the friends that you have at home are like the friends that you choose to have, people you choose to hang around, like because you have some sort of shared goal, like a band, or you work at a job together. But generally, you choose to be around those people. And when you go on the road, sometimes the people that are on the bus are like, that's your tribe, whether you like it or not. Those are the people that you live on a bus with for the next, 3 or 4 months or 2.5 years or whatever it is. And, it's like you end up sort of spending condensed time with people. Like I also feel like you get to know people in a matter of months the way that it takes like years at home, because you just spend every single day living on top of people, like in close quarters, a lot of times trying to do difficult things under adverse conditions.
Sure,
you know,
man.
that he was like, oh, you know, we as roadies were uniquely adapted to do this. And I was like, how do you mean? And I was thinking of all these different ways that he might have been saying. He's like, because we're just used to, he's like, I tell people all the time that our job is like doing difficult things under adverse conditions, you know, while,
Yeah, for sure. You're all under pressure all the time, even when you're not working, right? Like, okay, should
Against
I
the
work?
clock.
right. But
Yeah.
everybody's job is hard. So whatever. A lot of times our jobs are super easy too. I'm certainly not, you know, there are
But
certain people who have more difficult jobs than being a rock and roll roadie. So
sure, no, for sure. But okay, we'll talk about this later on. But I want to ask you something that I've been thinking uh, for this conversation. Do you believe that the crew you're working with is as important as the job itself?
absolutely.
Did that make any sense?
No, absolutely. There's, yeah, like certain gigs that you want to do because you have buddies. I mean, honestly, that's almost all the gigs you get in the industry are just like you work on a crew with somebody and then they take another gig and they're like, oh, hey, you want to come work on this with me? Or, you know, that's all how the job goes around anyways. But like,
Cool.
there's certainly, you know, gigs that you get called about and you're like, oh, I'm very excited to do that because like so-and-so is on it or so-and-so is on it. And we get to go hang out in a 230 square foot apartment where we can't take a poop for 2 months. So
But so, I mean, how can I ask this? I don't know if this has been your case, but if it hasn't, would you give it a thought of like quitting a job because the crew is not cool?
I have never personally done that. And if I had, I probably wouldn't say
No, I know. I didn't want to put you under.
anyways, because like,
You
but
know,
I be like,
that
I like,
wasn't the intention of my question.
or if I had, I certainly wouldn't talk about it.
No, for sure. Like I said, that wasn't my
But
intention.
I haven't. I've never left a gig. I've certainly had like, you know, every job is the same. It's like being a roadie isn't any different than like working anywhere else, where there's always someone at your job that is
That sucks.
there's always people at your job that you have personality challenges with, and that's just about any job you ever do ever. And then if you're lucky, then most of the people on your job are people that you love hanging out with. And if you're really lucky, you get to like, you know, have some people around that are like fucking awesome and you love hanging out with on a, in a 250 square foot apartment where you can't take a poop.
Yeah, man, I know it's really strange because as you were talking, I was thinking, okay, so this is like a traveling circus, and you travel with the and I'm saying this in a good way, like you're traveling with the freaks, from city to
Oh no
city.
no no! I've always I mean for sure. uh, I
It is like a circus, right?
It is like a circus. Yeah, for sure. I mean, not always. Most of the crews actually that I tour on these days, everyone's pretty adult and pretty tame. You know,
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
not.
I meant circus as in like it's a spectacle. Is that the word? Like in a spectacle, like you got the guy with the tigers and the bears and the guy with the
We definitely have a guy with tigers. You gotta have a guy with tigers. It's got.
So, so Brian, are you in charge of the gear of the? Let's say if you are in charge of the, I don't know, the guitarist or the bass
Generally,
player.
everyone is in charge of the gear for their own gig. Like if you're mixing front of house, most of the time you'll set up your own console, unless it's some total white glove gig where you have like an assistant. I had a monitor gig one time that I had, system techs. It was cool. They would set up the console for me and stuff like that. Those are rad gigs because then you just kind of sit down and like mix monitors for a couple hours and then walk away.
Have you
like
lost?
if you're or like most of what I do is guitar tech gigs these days, and that's very gear oriented. Yeah, I mean obviously like they don't set their, nobody sets their own gear up. That's what they have techs for.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
you set
exactly.
the gear and you do stuff like I like that part of the job because I think that the gear that you work on is a reflection of you. And
Huh.
I used to say this when people would be learning how to mix live sound in clubs or whatever for my sound company, but like the gear that you work on in clubs and stuff is a reflection of you too, or the gear that you travel with. Like it's always like more rookie guitar techs that'll complain about their artist's gear. It's like, well, it's your job to take care of it, So I want you to fix that shit up and
And
make it nice.
and have you ever lost a guitar or like something important, like let's say like a pedal board or something like that, like before
no.
the show?
I've never like lost a, I guess one time we went to Mexico City. I think it might have been when you and I met, Joel.
Yes, and I know you were gonna. Well, I don't know if I can tell the story. No, I don't
Oh,
want.
you want to tell it? I don't care.
I think Paige has told the story.
About you're talking about okay, about the guitar getting lost.
Yes.
Also, I think it would be nice to know how you guys met.
Punchline of the whole story, but no, we went to Mexico City the time that that I met Joel, and I think it was something weird. Like the next leg of the tour was starting from Minneapolis, so I was going to give them gear for backline, and I think in order to save money or something, so we didn't have to fly guitars to LA and then fly them back to Minneapolis to start, in a van from here or whatever. Me and this must have been Brandon, or it might have been Tim.
Brandon.
It was Tim. Gosh, why can't I say his last name?
Super quiet guy.
Yeah, Tim. No, he's great. He's a total buddy. I can't say his last name right now. It's whatever. I'm sorry, my memory's terrible. Tim Clausen. But so we're coming back from Mexico City and get off the plane and like get all of our luggage, and I think we have like 2 or 4 guitars with us, and they all start coming off the belt, and one of them's just like not showing up, and of course it's like the pink ESP Horizon that's Paige's like the
$1
guitar he wants to be
guitar
married with or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's the famous one, and it just like never shows up. And I wait at the airport for like 2.5 hours, and I'm just sweating bullets. And I just like, I guess I got to go home. And my wife's like, don't worry. Michael's like, oh, it'll show up tomorrow. It'll show up tomorrow morning. And it didn't show up the next day. And it was lost for like, I think 5 days or something. And it was like the next day the band was going to show up and start the tour. And I still hadn't like told Paige at all. And I'm just sweating bullets. And it finally showed up like the next morning or whatever. That's another anticlimactic story. The guitar showed up. But I didn't tell him about that it was lost. And I was like losing my mind for like, I think it was like 3 or 4 years, or I didn't tell him like about it at all. Just like, no, you don't know about that. Because that's part of it. Sometimes like, I think, and I guess I'm so guilty of this sometimes too, but when you first start off doing this, people have the desire to tell the artists that they work for, like all the problems that they fix all the time, but you're better off just not ever talking about them at all and just fixing them and not even telling anyone. Cause it's like, it's better if first of all, it's nobody's out there like, you don't go on the road to try to get pats on the back. If you just make stuff go away all the time and people never know about problems, and over time, you just sort of become the dude that there's never any problems when you're around. Hopefully, gosh, I know I have roadie friends of mine. They're laughing at me right now if they're watching this, but that's the whole thing, So you just like he didn't need to know that guitar was lost for 5 days. But I think when I did tell him later, though, he was like, "Oh, that thing's never going on the road again." And that's when ESP built the replicas of it or whatever.
Do you think you would have been fired if the guitar doesn't
no, because it wasn't that was the airline.
Yeah.
And Paige is cool. He would never. I don't know.
I mean, if you forget something like that, do you think you would? I mean, not specifically with Paige, but like with some other artist or whatever.
Stuff gets forgotten sometimes, and then you usually just have to figure out how to get it the next day or something. We try not to do those things. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's part of the responsibility.
But small mistakes become compounded when you are moving city to city every day. Things like injuries or leaving gear behind or all that kind of stuff becomes harder when you're moving city to city every day too. It's like, or trying to keep gear working. Things break that take, if you're doing festival circuit or if you're not headlining, you're doing opening spots every day on like a shed tour or something where you don't have a ton of time with the gear every day. Sometimes you have to struggle to do things that like take longer to fix or things like that. Like you have to be careful with like how big of jobs you can try to pull off if you know you have to put it all back in some cases in a couple hours.
Right. And
Like, there's definitely guitar repairs that I do at home that I wouldn't do on the road just because you don't have time to put something, glue it, and put it in a jig for. Well, I guess that's the challenge sometimes, is figuring out how to do that stuff. I have a friend that named Drew Foppy that has started up his own little guitar business in Arizona, and we all like refer to him as a fucking wizard because he fixed the stuff in hotel rooms with like Home Depot glue and rattle can paint, and it just looks perfect.
like what
There's just
With a knife.
yeah, right. Again, solving problems under adverse conditions.
Nah, for sure, man. And so now let me ask you this. Let's say now you've been working with Jerry for like what, like 5 years or so?
That sounds about right. I think a little over 5 years.
So
Yeah.
how would you react if something like this happens? Because Jerry has like a specific way of like his setup is very specific, you know? Like it's not something that you can go to Guitar Center and get it there.
That is true.
So how do you solve those issues?
Well, everybody. I mean, that's part of just teching is you learn how to. One of the things you have to learn how to do is be very consistent.
For sure.
And as far as guitar setups and stuff like that, you just learn how to measure. You just have to learn how to like take very precise measurements about everything about a guitar. That's one way. And then you also just you play the stuff and touch it all the time. You just have to sort of kind of get used to paying attention to the guitars the way somebody else does. I mean, you learn like, I don't know, you try to learn to, play the way they do with their hands. Like if they're really, hit really hard with their right hand, or if they're like a light grip with their left hand or something.
Right.
And nobody can do that exactly. That's why those people are great players, and like I'm not, or their techs are not.
Do you have any guitar that you remember that you have like this feeling that it was the best guitar that you've ever played, like of some artist?
Best guitar in the universe?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really get super attached to instruments. Like I mean, I have a guitar that I've been playing since I was younger, maybe 19. I got a guitar I've had for most of my life, and I like that one a lot. And I don't know, but I kind of like all the guitars. I like having different artist guitars in the rack all the time. Like when you do, I mean, I guess not all the time. I don't do that many different guitar gigs, but I don't know. I like seeing a lot of different guitars come across my workbench at home too, because I just like all the guitars. I don't have a favorite, if that's what you're asking. Maybe this one. I don't know. This is the I bought this guitar. I bought this guitar from a dude named Arky Wilson on the side of the road in southern Indiana, right before I moved to Minneapolis that summer. Before I moved, I think I was on my way to Minneapolis, maybe to look at an apartment or something, and he had a sign that said GITARS Guitars, and I stopped and bought that guitar, and I've had it ever since.
Is that John Travolta in the sticker?
That's John Travolta special, yes. That is in fact John Travolta on the front of that guitar.
That's cool.
That's
man.
great.
So let me go back to the question. So, do you always travel with a backup? I mean, I know sometimes they travel like with
I try to. I mean, that's definitely
pedals with like food.
I mean,
stuff.
you kind of. I've been very lucky that I mean, I've only done a couple guitar taking gigs. The first one I did for the longest time was Chris Trainer and.
Oh no. Amigos, denos un momentito en lo que nos conectamos otra vez. No tardamos más de 5 segundos. Bueno, 5 minutos. Please hold on a second. If you're watching outside of Mexico, give us 2 minutes in order to get Joel and Brian to hook up with the Zoom meeting again. Give us 1 second, please. thanks for holding. We are already hooking up with Brian and Joel. Please give us a few seconds more. I think everybody's hooking up right now. Ya estamos en vivo otra vez.
Okay, sorry guys, the Zoom time was over, so we have to start again, but I hope you're having a good time. ¿Hay preguntas?
Sí, hay algunas.
If you have any questions, please just write them down on the little chat thing, and then we'll try to get at them. Just give me. Ya se lo mandé. A ver, ¿quieres leer alguna pregunta? ¿Ya se unió?
No, todavía no. Ya está.
Oh shit. We are live.
We're back.
We're back in business.
Hey, are we back? Did you put the link up on my page, Joel?
No, I'll do that. I mean, so you were telling us about.
Let me call my kids real quick and tell them to let the dog in and feed him. You should put the link up. Let's leave it a message. Yeah. Oh, whatever. They'll figure it out. Did you want to put the link up on the page, or
it's the same link?
It's the same.
Oh, okay. All right then.
Yeah.
I guess we're back then.
Yes, we're back.
Oh, I get what we were talking about, like having backups of stuff. I guess that's just if you're really,
especially with like
really lucky enough to have artists who will, pay for that. And with what?
With like pedals and stuff like that, because like I said before, I know Paige for the fact that he uses like very specific equipment, as well as Jerry. I mean, I've been lucky enough to see the rig in person. So how does that work? What happens if something is fucked?
Well, that's the whole thing. Is if like I said, if you're lucky enough to have artists that have resources to have backups for everything, it's great. But the other part of that story is that if you are given sort of unlimited resources of like money to buy backups and time to build up systems that are redundant and things like that, then the expectation of not having anything die ever increases massively.
Right.
And the other thing about it is, if you stay on top of just fixing things all the time and trying to maintain things, the goal is to just not have things break. Like if you build, people always talk about pedals, but if you build pedal boards properly and have them sort of bulletproof, then they don't break, and that's the whole point.
Right, but sometimes life doesn't care, and the pedal board will still break.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, stuff breaks. Yeah, stuff breaks, or stuff gets rained on, or stuff. You just try to keep all that stuff from happening, and then if you're lucky enough to have backups, you try to get other stuff working as soon as possible.
Right, but when you started working with like smaller bands, right? So your budget has been growing. Can you?
Maybe. I was pretty lucky to work for bands that, well, I guess they could at least, afford to have techs. That's, that's a big step.
Right.
But like what I'm saying, I think one of the things you have to learn is that when you work with artists that don't have, tons of budget for gear and stuff like that, you just have to take care of stuff. You have to take care of things and make sure that they're packed properly and don't get broken that way, and make sure that they're, don't get rained on or whatever, or just that's that whole, whatever, I guess it's cliche, an ounce of prevention, whatever, being worth it.
Sure. Especially when you are giving a show in front of like thousands of people, right?
But does an ounce of prevention mean is worth a pound of cure? Is that a phrase that gets used in Spanish?
I don't think so. Can you say it again?
An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I think it's like Benjamin Franklin or somebody like that said something ridiculous like that. I remember when you and I were in France, though, and we kept trying to use idioms from English roughly translate into French, and it just wouldn't. It just people just look at us. Well, they look at us stupid anyways because I don't speak very good French.
But that's common in Spanish too, right? Like
right, exactly. Just like you'd say something like I remember saying to a dude one day in French that I'm no spring chicken, and he just looked at me like I was a maniac because there's that phrase doesn't translate.
no, but the previous one, you can say something like
What they say has something to do with I wasn't born with the spring rain. Is
right.
the sort of equivalent of it, but either way, yeah.
What about
Prevention is worth a pound of cure, Joel.
más vale prevenir que lamentar? That's how we say it, right, Andres?
Mhm.
Más vale
Digo,
prevenir.
más o menos, ¿no? It's more or less the
What
same.
does that mean?
But yeah.
Yeah. It's better to prevent than to be sorry.
Yeah.
That's the idea, right?
Same vibe.
Yeah. So
Hey, and
anyway, no, go ahead.
is there like a country that does the productions easier for you guys, like for the roadies and the
Countries
stuff?
that are easier. I don't know. There's definitely countries that are harder.
Like Mexico, we have to talk about it. Sorry, Mexico. I know, man, and I have this.
Oh no, I didn't think Mexico was difficult. I mean everything's different, but Andres, did you and I meet when we were down there? The time that I met
No.
Joel, did you and Joel know each
No.
other then?
No, we haven't met in person.
I'm just saying I probably wouldn't remember it if we had because my memory is terrible. Joel will tell you I don't remember anything. But anyways, I don't know. Like I think you go. I know sometimes in Italy I get frustrated because you roll in someplace and you were supposed to have started 2 hours ago, and there's like I remember I was there one time and I was asking somebody to patch in inserts on a console or something, and I came back like 45 minutes later and they were just kind of like smoking a joint and being like it's Italy or whatever, and just don't really. That can be frustrating. Or
Yeah,
I think in
for sure.
Brandon and I had a rough time in Croatia one time, just dudes being fucking bigots. That sucked. But
On that tour back then.
yeah, no, I think that was right before you started with us or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Other places are super easy. I feel like you go to a lot of the European festivals and they really do a good job of making something that should be super difficult, super easy, just having stuff together and super organized and good crews and tons of people, and they feed you
Oh my God.
well. And, or like, or certain tours, like, I was lucky enough, I've been lucky enough to tour on some, like as support acts with some bigger tours. Like when I first started working for Chris and Gavin, we toured opening for U2 for a while, and that was about freaking paradise. Just
Look, man, I remember. Wasn't there like a chef every night or some shit like that?
yeah. Well, I mean, just I think it was the first time I was ever on tour where I was sitting around in a dressing room after about a week, and I was like, man, that TV kind of looks familiar, and like, so does this couch kind of looks familiar. And then it's like, wait, so does that potted plant. And then you realize that they have like a whole semi-trailer every day. So you feel at home in some, hockey arena locker room or whatever. Just like
here.
and to be on a tour where they're doing that for like support bands or something feels really bizarre,
Yeah, no, for sure, man. How
like the type of tours that carry washers and dryers, or they'll be like steak night, and there's like we're definitely overfed. I mean, definitely overfed. There's this whole, what was the joke last year? It was like some of these poor roadies only get 4 meals a day. It's really easy. That's part of the thing where it's like hard to maintain a lifestyle, though. Like I mean, I in end of January, beginning of February this year, I was like diagnosed with type 2 diabetes because I had gotten like massively overweight. And I mean, I'm still overweight, but I lost 80 freaking pounds just
That's good.
trying to get my.
I think he's breaking up off. He left us.
There's breakfast and lunch and dinner and then after show, and then sometimes people screwing around with barbecues in the middle of the night. And I think my
No,
internet.
for sure, man. I mean, I can't I can only imagine if you are like a vegan, how hard it is to tour. Like if you don't tour,
Again, it depends on the tour. Some tours you're on, you walk into catering every day and there's like a vegan option.
no, for
And
sure,
that
but
stuff gets really easy, you know. That's actually, but that stuff's more difficult. It's definitely. I mean, I've never been a vegan, but my partner, Michael was a vegan for a long time, so I think I know. I get a little bit used
I
to
hope
seeing
he
what it's
doesn't.
like, but it's definitely easier these days than it used to be, I think. And it's definitely accommodated for a lot more often than it used to be, I think. And then I think if you're just in a van and trying to do it that way, you have more options these days for finding, a co-op or something to be able to just try whatever. Yeah, I think that stuff's getting easier.
Yeah, well, that it's good to know because when I started touring there, I mean, I wasn't a vegan, but yeah, it was hard sometimes to like you get fed up of just eating pizza and hamburgers, you know?
Oh, the sacred pizza wheel. Thou shalt not blaspheme the pizza wheel, Joel.
That's good though. So how was touring with you two? I forgot about that. You two,
Me,
you two.
I don't know.
Were you a fan?
I guess like a little bit, like not a super fan or anything. I mean, I I like the earlier work. The snootiest answer in the world. I do remember one of the first nights of doing it that we got done with all of our stuff and just sort of like walked out. Just we had passes and stuff and just sort of started walking out towards where they were playing, and nobody ever stopped us. And then just sort of ended up walking out where we're kind of standing right in the aisle, like right in front of the stage, just looking up at what's going on. And this usher comes up, and I think for sure that they're going to tell us we can't stand there. We get give us the bums rush because we're hobos standing there watching in the aisle. And the lady's like, "Oh, pardon me, no, I need to make sure you get some plastic cups. You can't have your beer bottles out here." And like brings us plastic cups and it's like, "Enjoy the show" or whatever. And later on, it's like I can't remember if they're playing Beautiful Day or something like that, and just like 18,000 people in this arena are just like screaming during the chorus. And I hear this ungodly noise and I look over and it's my friend Jeff that's on tour with me. And he's just got like his hands in the air and he's just like letting out this like, unbridled scream. And then I realized that like I have my hands in the air and I'm screaming too. And it's just super fun bubble. And then you do that for a couple of months or whatever. And then all of a sudden you're just not doing that anymore. And you're like, damn it, I never get to do that again. Just this amazingly fun, awesome tours that you do sometimes. And then when they're over, it's just, you're super, super sad because you
Because
know that you're probably not going to hang out with all those people again. And you're just, I don't know, it makes, so you get to
Do you
know
got?
people very, very well in very short periods of time. And if you're lucky, you get to see them again if you're doing the same cruise. But there's other people that you get to know very, very well that you like a lot that are just like, you won't see them again because maybe your paths will or won't cross or whatever. Maybe they will.
yeah,
Do you go to music shows when you're not
I don't
working?
know. I had one friend. I will say it was more like when I was younger, all I did was record records for a living for a number of years, and I definitely had a period in that where I was just like, "Ugh, I don't want to fucking listen to music if I'm not working." But then I had another period after that where I started studying sort of what I considered to be the lexicon of classic rock and roll, things that I used to not like when I was in high school. I fucking hated AC/DC and Guns N' Roses and stuff like that, and just just went back and started listening to classic recordings to try to learn how they were made and how they were recorded, and then you go through more periods where you're like, oh, I just don't want to listen to anything again, and then it's like, okay, I'll dig into the Beatles, and then that's all you listen to for like 2 years. And definitely you have, if you're mixing a lot on the road, then you come home and you're just like, yeah, I don't want to listen to anything. Or if you're mixing clubs a lot, but you kind of, I get over that. And also my partner Michael is a voracious music fan, so she's always dragging me out to shows. Like she buys tickets to shows, and if I'm home, I'll go with her. And
that's cool, man. Yeah, because I don't
I
really
try
know
not
what.
to miss Dinosaur Jr. shows and things like that.
Yeah,
I lost you there for a second. I think having kids changes that too, because I try to play music in, around my kids, just because I want them to listen to cool music.
right, right,
I mean,
right.
I'm sure they're going to listen to music that I hate at some point. That's just inevitable. But
So let me go back to your job.
whatever, or maybe not. Okay.
I
Yes,
want.
let me go. Let me go back to my job. I would love to go back to my job right now. Can we do
Yeah,
that?
everybody, I think. I wanted to ask you something because when we started like hanging out and talking more,
Uh huh.
I remember I asked you like, what's like the number one skill one must have to become a guitar tech? And the first thing that you said was have people skills. I think you worded
Yeah,
it in a different way. Do you still feel the same about it now that you've grown a lot in the last 10
absolutely. But I think that's just anything in life. Like you have to.
kinda?
At least for me, it's been my experience that you have to have technical skills to be able to know how to fix things and mix or work on guitars or do any of those technical aspects of the job. But I feel like life is 90% people skills, and just the or I just talk about when you try to live on the road, especially the whole bit of like the people you're there, that's your tribe, whether you like it or not, like I said before. But you live or die on the road based on this sort of complex web of interpersonal relationships that you have to try to maintain, um, to just try to get along with people. And also sometimes it's stressful, like things happen during shows, and sometimes people say things or in the heat of the moment or whatever, and you have to not
Right.
let that kind of stuff bother you. You just kind of gotta be cool about stuff and relaxed about stuff. The older I get, I always tell people I try, like when I'm on the road, I try to flow through the day like water. Just
Like Bruce Lee.
yeah, I don't know about Bruce. Yeah, Bruce Lee. I wish.
Oh, he said something about
Just
flowing
move
like.
around obstacles and just not let things bum you out, and just coast. Just coast through the day like water. That's a good approach.
Yeah,
And or more recently, since this pandemic started, my friend Chris Strauss keeps telling me that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And I think life is like that. You got to remember that. I don't know. You just gotta
yeah, no, for sure, man.
easier way through it sometimes.
Yeah, I
People
agree
skills
with
well.
you. I think in life you gotta work on your people skills, right? To try to work on yourself.
You
Try
definitely have to. Yeah, the ability to get along with other people under stressful situations is uh, that's like if you can learn to do that well. Or my buddy Scotty always says like you can either you can either suck at your gig or you can be a dick, but you can't be both. You can
mm,
either be bad at your gig or you can be a dick, but you can't be both. Um,
for sure.
yeah,
Do
try to be neither.
no, I mean it would. Yeah, I mean you have to be great at your work while being a good people or a good person rather.
do you think the big artists after
Why don't you
sometimes
try anything?
they start to be less arrogant if they were at some point, or they always stay like pretty arrogant and
Oh no,
like
I've been very,
because of.
very lucky to work for some very nice and kind people. Like honestly, Howell, a lot of the people I've worked for, and I think I've just been really lucky that I've never really had to work with anybody who's just awful or anything. And I also do think that the longer people do it, the more relaxed they get about it, and that applies for everybody. And also just mosquitoes. The longer that you're with somebody too, you sort of grow into the working relationship like an old pair of shoes or whatever. And the longer time you spend working with the same artists or the same camps, even just the same other group of techs, everybody gets more comfortable with each other. Everybody gets more integrated as a team, like solving problems, and everybody gets more relaxed about how they do everything and learns what. Yeah.
Right. So you mentioned that it's very important, of course, how you get along with your I guess your boss.
Uh-huh.
How much of an influence as a guitar tech have you had with the guitar player you're working with at the moment? Like for
Oh, I
example,
mean, I think they have more of an influence on me.
but let me finish. I'm trying to say like in regards of equipment or maybe like, hey, try this, and he will be like, oh, okay, maybe.
Oh, I don't do that. I do. No, I don't do that really. Like I know techs that roll into a gig and they'll try to like rebuild a guy's rig and change all his stuff around, and I just don't do that. I figure if people have a rig that works for them and they have gear that they like, then like, hey man, I don't need to mess with that. But I think it's more often if you let people know that you're welcome, that they're welcome to change things, or that you'll accommodate whatever they want to try, or you don't mind, doing things like building new gear up and stuff. Then you give people the freedom to try new things or explore things. But I've also, like, oh, Jerry
Yeah,
doesn't Jerry doesn't try and change anything ever hardly. Chris changed things a lot, like from Bush. He
right.
changed things a lot, but again, that's also like I was saying, it's more they have an impact on you, like influence on you. Like just if you like, I worked around, like I was talking about, Chris for a long time. He liked to change things a lot, but it just sort of makes you get used to just doing that kind of stuff. Like I can change pickups in a guitar like lickety split. that's,
For folks who don't know,
that's the motherfucker.
yeah, you're talking about Chris from Bush, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Chris.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for folks who are listening and don't know.
Chris.
Hmm.
Hey, Nunu.
Right,
You
but
guys
I
feed the dog dinner yet? You should go feed her dinner. She was whining for dinner before. You want to come say hi?
yeah, come say hi, please.
Somebody's got a new haircut, pandemic style.
I can have a haircut.
Look at this kid.
How are you?
Hey,
Hello.
go feed her.
Perla?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I also think that when you work for people that you try to sit around and play their gear all the time, and you end up trying to like bumble your way through their riffs and stuff like that, over longer periods of time, it starts to affect how you play too.
Huh,
I definitely
interesting.
play different. Like I after working for Helmet for a long time, I definitely played guitar different. And then after like working for Jerry for a few years now, it's definitely had an impact on how I play. Or I don't know.
Like in technique or just the way you see him playing,
Yeah,
maybe.
but I don't specifically think I'm not. I don't think I'm influencing him. What?
But I
Well,
did.
yeah, you watch them play all the time, and then you end
Right.
up learning riffs for sound checks and things like that, and you end up learning how to butcher their solos. You
You
end up you end up learning how to play their parts not very well.
Hmm. Hey, have you ever played in a show like when somebody's got hurt or something like that? Have you ever had to hop on the stage and
No, like that
play a song or something?
the teenage fantasy of like the teenage fantasy where Kirk Hammett breaks his arm, and
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
I know the solo to one. No,
try
that
to
never
just
happened.
like meantime.
Never happens. I think there was one time we were going to Canada and the bass player didn't get in, and there was talk of me trying to play a show on bass with Helmet, but there ended up being a dude who had auditioned for the band, like playing in Sebastian Bach's band or something ridiculous. So that happened. Or yeah, no, that's not like that stuff never happens. I guess it has happened in the history of roadieism, but not not that not in my world ever.
Didn't it happen to you on the Warp Tour? Like the drummer quit?
Oh,
Like,
the drummer on the Warp Tour, Mike Jost, left uh, without telling anyone because he thought that his girlfriend was going into labor, and she ended up not having the baby for like another 3 or 4 weeks, or something. I think she was having like what they call Braxton Hicks contractions or something, and he just like up and left, and everyone's like, "Has anybody seen Mike lately?" And but then
and this is Helmet.
correct. And but then this kid named Mike Petticone, who was playing with a band called the Bled, like Chris Trainer went and found him. He was playing Helmet then too, and me and Brandon set up gear in the production office the next day, and they had a rehearsal with him, and he played a show that night. And someone found like a picture of him playing in a high school talent show wearing a helmet shirt or something too. It was like, and when they were playing too, it was like this magical moment where everyone's kind of like on the side of the stage, like watching for the train wreck to unfold that never happened. And he just, totally stuck the landing and played a great show. And it was a short set or something, but he learned like 6 or 8 or 9 helmet songs in a day, and played his first show within the next day. And he finished the tour and did the rest of the tour or whatever. And then he went on to join My Chemical Romance. And then he went on to get kicked out of My Chemical Romance. That's a whole nother. That's somebody else's business, not mine.
Yo, how did you hate touring? Did you hate doing the Warp Tour? Was it the worst tour ever?
I mean, there were moments where it was super fun, and Brandon and I certainly had a really good time that summer. But that shit is brutal.
Yeah, man, that's what I heard.
Ridiculous. Man. It's like hardcore camping for 9 weeks, where you just like, I remember there was days where you would wait. There would be like 4 showers for like 700 dudes to use. So you would wait in line for like 2.5 hours to try to take a shower, and then you get in there and there'd be like a bunch of blood on the floor or something. You just be like, nah, I'm cool, I'm out. Or just, and it wasn't so bad for us because we were on like one of the main stages and we were taken care of pretty well. We got, we had to walk like a mile for our beer everywhere that like didn't have water, and didn't just like weren't being fed, and about the catering lines, but like whatever. In the grand scheme of things, like it's even like something like that we consider like a rough lifestyle, being on the road is so much easier and cushier than so many people's lifestyles around the world, So it sounds stupid to say that it's hard or it's grueling to be on the Warp Tour, because you at least have access to clean water and you're fed every day and you aren't sleeping out hard, like you're sleeping in.
For sure, man. No, for sure. But it's not the easiest thing to do, right? Maybe I think it's like a young man game.
It's definitely more difficult to do than the touring that I do as of late. And it's definitely much more of a young man's game. You're absolutely right. Because it's very physically exhausting. There was some of the younger bands on that tour would have to just carry their gear across, like from one side or the other of like a horse track, through sand and shit every day, or like on certain days. If you'd load into some weird venue where you're playing in some field, and they'd have to carry their gear like 3/4 of a mile through the mud or something. It's like, okay, that's no fun. Or just, I don't know.
Do you think your kid is gonna get into music business, or?
Oh, I hope not. I don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe. I guess. I don't know. We, my partner and I always have talked about just, it's like it's there if they want to do it. Like if they want to play drums or play guitar, that shit's around. But I try really hard to not like force it on them or be like, hey, you want to,
You want to be a rock star?
They seem to take interest at different times or not. Maliki at one point was talking about he and his friends were going to start a band and he was going to work the microphones. And I was like, that's cool.
Cool.
Or, Nunu was trying to play guitar today for a while, and if they want to do it, it's there for them. But I certainly don't want to ever like try to push it on them.
Right.
So maybe they will. I sort of think it's more like inevitable that they're going to grow up learning how to take care of guitars and record rock bands and mix shows and do all that kind of stuff, just because that's what I'm doing all the time, and they're just around it all the time. I that just seems like the most. I mean, I don't know. I learned to do a lot of the things that I watched my father do or my grandfathers do or stuff growing up.
Right.
But it's not just like working on doing music stuff either. It's like working on cars, or like we're in the middle of a project in my garage right now, installing some electrical work and laying a course of blocks around the slab to raise up the walls and try to keep the garage from leaking. But that's also that we can put another shop for working on guitars in the garage, because my friend Cole is going to start working with me because I have more work than I can get done right now, which is a good problem to have.
Where is your shop?
I just work out of my house.
Minneapolis,
But
Yeah. Just right
Minneapolis.
overhead.
St. Paul.
All right.
Is
Yeah.
it St. Paul?
No, I have a rehearsal space over in St. Paul, but I haven't really been going there since the pandemic started.
Right. So let me ask you now that you're gonna open a shop, have you thought about building your own gear, like
I actually have some pedals that I was about 90% done with last winter, but got distracted by some things. But I think I'm going to try to finish that project up, like 7 different little guitar pedal designs. And I got this other thing that I'm kind of kicking around with my buddy Chris Harrington, who he's kind of like my real estate buddy. He's our realtor, and he is a property owner and landlord and stuff. And he was always cutting down trees on some of the properties that he owned, so he started cutting his own trees off his properties and then milling the lumber. And then he paid this other friend of ours that's a sculptor and stuff to pour a concrete slab so he could store this lumber he's milling and age it. And then, we've been talking about having a business doing custom countertops out of these slabs of cherry and oak and stuff that he's cutting down on these properties but then we started talking about, like, how cool would it be to build guitars out of weird woods too, where you can, like mulberry and stuff, and there's some maple and stuff that he's got for necks and stuff. And
wow.
But then if you could show someone, like, this is the tree that your guitar became, turned into, or that turned into your guitar, and show them, here's that dude cutting this tree down, and here we are milling the lumber, and then here it is sitting for 5 years aging, and then here it is being cut into a quarter sawn blank that we're going to turn into a neck. And that's sort of the long game plan.
That's awesome.
What I'm doing with the garage right now is trying to get a better wood shop set up out there, and maybe a paint booth. That's mosquito, like a paint booth, so we can do better stuff on finishes. And
great project.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I guess that's like, I'm always trying to learn stuff and get better at stuff. So I guess the sort of natural progression at some point is you start building things. I don't know. I wouldn't mind. My friend Drew in Arizona, he builds amps now. He builds great fucking amps. I could see, and then also, like, if you're trying to run a business, you do stuff like that. And if it's like cool and you get good at it and it's lucrative, then you do more of it. And if it's like, I'm not interested in that, or it was a huge pain in the butt to a lot of work to not make very much money, then you sort of get motivated to keep doing it, because you have to pay the bills at some point, So I kind of tend to do, like, for work, I tend to do things that I can make money at. Like, I know it sounds ridiculously simple, but I do the things that I can make money at. Well, I'm always trying to figure out new ideas of ways to make money too.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
The pandemic, yeah. When the pandemic started, essentially every source of income that I have became like, oh, you can't do that anymore.
But it's cool that it's working now, that you are doing, like, the fixing the guitars and everything.
Yep. What's up, Nunu? Did you feed the dog?
¿Hay preguntas, Andrés? I think we're gonna go to the questions now. Like, if people.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes. Questions.
People have.
Yeah, there's a question that they asked us through Instagram. It's Max Munoz.
The background.
Max Munoz said,
Max,
what do you do first if there's a festival that doesn't give you time for a sound check or scene check? What do you do first?
I believe that is what
What's the first?
As a throw and go, or as my friend Scotty calls it, a chuck and suck. You're talking about when you show up at a festival and there's no time for a sound check, and you just have to, like, get all the gear ready and then just throw it on stage and play a show.
Yeah.
First of all, that stuff is much easier to do.
Okay.
You are used to doing that, and you have your gear built in such a way that you can do that quite easily. Second of all, you learn to set up where you can and do the work that you need to do, whether you're setting up, like, on a dock or in the back of a truck or just someplace off stage. and just make sure all your stuff works and get your strings changed, and you just do what you can. Or like if you're a monitor guy, you get all your microphones out and just have them all as cabled up as possible. Or like, and the audio team comes over and puts all the microphones on it. And then for like Guitar Town, you just you try to make things so that anything that can't be preset in place ahead of time is able to roll and connect as quickly as possible. That's why you build cable looms that are all color coded, so you can just plug things in really fast. And you know, like I said, you do whatever maintenance work you can out on the dock, and then you just learn to do it in a hurry and prioritize. The first thing you do is prioritize. That's what you do. You figure out what has to happen to make a gig happen, and you do that first.
And that this is speaking as a guitar tech, but I think Max, what he meant is speaking as a front of house.
Oh, as a front of house guy.
Like, can I rephrase the question again?
I think,
So he says that what's the first instrument that has to be heard, like has to be on when you don't have sound check?
Mixing. You mean like for mixing? Okay, here's rule number. I mean, I feel like this, and it's been a long time since I toured as a front of house guy, but I certainly did it. If people can't hear the vocals, it sucks. If people can't hear the vocals, you're not doing a good job. That's like generally the first thing that people complain about. And that's whether you're in a small club or whether you're outdoors in like a shed or some festival, or you're in an arena, or no matter where. If people can't hear the vocals, you're getting dirty looks.
Okay.
And then beyond that, again, it's just like prioritizing. When you listen to a mix, you just, especially indoors, you listen to what's coming off the stage, and then just start what's missing most. You know, like, is it okay? I'm getting lots of guitar amps, and I've got the guy's vocal jacked up on top of it. So, you know, then you're just like trying to start tucking in the drums, or what are the biggest fires you have to put out first? What's the biggest thing missing in a mix? And you address that. And then, but you also don't spend forever, you know, just spin through the stuff quickly. And just like what, you know, you got, sometimes if you don't get a chance to, well, I guess it depends too. A lot of times you'll have show files. You know, it's very rarely that you walk into a situation where you're just like thrust into a festival without having anything on a different desk or something. I mean, it happens. It certainly, I guess it certainly happens. But if you're lucky, a lot of times you'll have show files, or you'll at least have a console of your own, and you know that makes things easier.
Yeah, for sure.
Like on bigger tours, even on festivals, you'd have your own console, or at least the festival would have a console there for you that you might have a show file for, and then you just load your show file, and then again you're just prioritizing, like what's the biggest, you know, what's wrong, what's the most wrong, you know.
Right.
That's what you have to do. Prioritize.
Thanks, buddy. Is
that good? Okay.
Yeah. More questions?
Sorry, I think my son might be mowing the lawn.
There's Joel told me about this this time where you got when you fell asleep in Axl Rose truck or something like that. I don't know.
Oh no, we don't need to talk about that.
Okay.
Let's just say I am not afraid to snore in Axl Rose's front lounge.
Oh shit!
I'm that guy.
That's why we love you, man. That's why we love you.
Yes.
That's why we love you, man.
Yes.
So, there was someone in the chat asking how, like, if you don't get scared when someone throws a guitar at you, like in this case, Jerry.
Oh, well, people always ask me about that. First and foremost, the first thing I told him when he said he wanted to throw guitars at me every day was like, no problem. I'm going to order like 3 spare necks, because it's not if, but when I drop it, like you don't get to complain about it. That if you're going to throw guitars at me every day, that's totally cool. It's just, they're going to get dropped eventually, you know? But the other side of that is, for years and years and years, people would like, have you ever dropped one? And be like, no, I haven't. And then last year, after like 5 freaking years, I dropped one at the end of tour last year.
Oh shit!
Did it? I just got all nonchalant and too comfortable about it, and I just stuck my arm out, and it literally hit my palm and just bounced off my palm, and I just did it wrong. I knew better than to do it. You have to kind of like grab it and let the momentum move forward so you hang on to it because they're heavier than you think. And I just did it wrong and I got cocky and I could no longer say that I had never dropped it. I think that I was more upset about it than anybody. Jerry kind of made fun of me about it for a while. He just thought it was funny. I think we only have less than a minute left. It says, "Is this the speed round for questions?"
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we can connect again to say goodbye.
Okay, okay, all right. I'll connect with you in a second.
Yeah, let's do that. Pues ya estamos de vuelta.
¿Hay más preguntas?
Pues creo que no, ¿no? Bueno, ahí por ahí Manuel preguntó algo.
¿Qué, Manuel?
Manuel González Frau.
Okay. ¿Qué preguntó?
Have we really been talking that long? It seems like we've been talking for like 5 minutes.
No, man. That's we do it. That's
Yeah,
how we do it.
it's an hour and 15 minutes.
I'm certainly I've been known to be verbose.
That's
the
why
fancy
we
way
love
of saying
it.
I can
We're
talk.
live, by the way.
What's that?
We are live, by the way.
Okay, cool.
So you were telling us.
Oh, I don't know. We were just talking. We're taking questions.
Oh yeah, questions.
Are there any more questions?
I have one for you.
Sure.
So
In other words, that means both the people that were watching have asked their question.
probably.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. So if someone who is starting a band and this person is starting to do live shows as a guitar player and you have your half stack on stage, what's like the first thing they have to do? Like you have to be able to hear everyone or just the drums, or what would be like the ideal setup?
I always used to say to people, especially when I was like mixing in clubs and stuff, that the smartest thing you can do as a band
Right.
is learn to mix yourself before the PA gets turned on. Like learn to have your amps, like your bass amps and your guitar amps, and even just like the way you have your drums tuned and everything, and even just the way that you hit your drums, so that all a sound engineer has to do is not screw it up. You know, like if your snare drum is tuned really well and you learn to hit your kick drum really hard, but not just wail on your crash cymbals so that like you actually sound good just acoustically coming from the drums.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for sure you have to know.
And then you have your guitar amps and your tone also, and your tone sounds good. And then like when I go to play shows, the first thing I always do is we get a tone, everybody gets a tone up on their amp, drummer's getting set up, and they'll be like, give me some time, or like play kick snare hat, and just have the drummer play kick snare hat, and then you turn your amp up or down until you feel like you have a good mix for the 3 or 4 of you that are on stage, just like that, just with that alone. And then the other thing I always do that I think is antithetical for where a lot of people, when they first start out, I try to have as no monitor as possible. Like I always tell sound engineers, if the vocals are loud enough in the house, that like I don't need a monitor. But I think if you learn to sing well and like learn to get on top of a microphone and be loud, that's a big thing too. that makes the job easier for sound engineers. You want to do as much as you can as a band to make it so a sound engineer just has to not screw you up. Make their job easy. Have your, it's like good tone isn't good tone if it's like too freaking loud. If it's just so loud that you can't hear anything else in the band, then that's really not good tone. At least in my opinion. And it's different when you get into bigger shows. But you're talking about you said when a band first starts out.
Yeah.
So like when a band first starts out and you're trying to play stuff like that, the smartest thing you can do is learn to mix yourself as a band, just acoustically, the sound of the instruments, the sound of the amps, the sound of the drums, without any PA even turned on.
Yeah, no, I agree, man, because sometimes I have the feeling, and let me know if you think this is like a fair thing to say, that sometimes some bands come to the venues thinking or having the mindset that the front of house guys or girl is gonna make them sound great when they don't even sound great themselves,
Right. No, that's
that's common, right?
Yes, sometimes.
So now,
I feel like that's the challenge. When you first start mixing live sound in bars and things like that, one of the mosquitoes again around here. One of the things you have to figure out, one of the challenges, is how to very quickly develop a rapport with a band on your stage. Like, so a band shows up at the club you're mixing, and to do that is like how to very quickly get a dialogue going with them where you can try to help them sound as good as possible by turning up, turning down, by fixing tones that are off. And if you can do it in such a way that it doesn't feel like you're attacking them or threatening them or trying to tell them how to do it, then it's better for everybody, because if they sound better, people think you're a kick-ass sound engineer, And so, like, sometimes even if you can convince people to let you tune their drums, that's a pretty good trick. If you can convince a guy that you just met 5 minutes ago to let you tune his drums, or at least convince him to tune them himself if he knows how, then that's a good trick, because then you look like a much better sound engineer if those drums sound
yeah, for sure, it's a win situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question about, because when I saw Alice in Chains in Mexico, I noticed that there's like a wah-wah pedal in the middle of the stage, but like I saw Jerry going there and play with it, and then I saw Mike going there and play with the same pedal. So
okay, no. So what that is, that's a remote controller for a Dunlop rack-mounted wah. And the way that works is, so Jerry, he actually has two wahs on stage. On stage left, there's a pedal loop. So basically, it's a Bradshaw rig that has loops that throw pedals in and out of the signal chain, right?
Yeah.
It's a Bradshaw switch gizmo is the device. Who makes that? I can't remember. RJM Effect Gizmo. That's the looper. It's kind of like ground control, where there's loops that you add pedals in and out of the chain. And most of those pedals live in a rack that I have to control the settings on and things like that. But one of those loops, instead of going to a pedal in the rack, goes to a whole little pedal board downstage that has a wah and a roto vibe and a talk box on it. And that's where the talk tube for the whole like wah, 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 thing happens on that. And that's an actual analog wah that has signal going out to it and back on a loom. But on the other side of the stage, it's just a remote. And what that is, it's a TRS cable, like a single cable.
Right.
And there's no actual audio going to that pedal. It's just a remote pedal that sends a control value up and down. It's power. It sends a control value up and down that expression pedal that goes to a rack-mounted wah. And it's the guts
like
of the
controller.
wah, single space rack unit that are in the same effect rack, and they get kicked on and off from a loop. So like when he walks over there, you turn the loop on. So if he wants to play that wah, he steps on that controller and it turns on, and then he's controlling the rack-mounted wah from the other side of the stage. But you see Mike go and step on it all the time, but Mike's not actually playing it. He's just stepping on it because he just is, likes to put his foot on it and rock out. But when he's doing that, it's out of the loop, so that if he accidentally turns it on, then it doesn't, like, all of a sudden Mike's playing a wah on top of, the sensitive part of like, whatever song.
Not
You know
sure.
what I mean? Where there's not supposed to be a wah. And then like also it'll accidentally get turned on sometimes, and you have to like those things have a thing where if you disable and re-enable them, it actually kicks it out of the on state into the bypass state again on the pedal state. But anyways, yeah, that's the difference. There's a remote wah on one side, but there's an actual analog wah on the other side, and the analog wah's loop gets kicked in or out, or the remote wah is a rack mounted controller that gets kicked in and out on a loop.
Right. So I mean, for me, I will have to.
That makes sense. That was kind of a convoluted answer.
No. It does make sense. I will have to rewatch this though to analyze it and figure it out in my head.
All right.
But let me ask you this: when you, for example, when you're with Jerry and you have like you have the cabinet right there, like by your side. Remember?
Yes.
Mexico?
Yes. No. That the kill zone as to which it is referred.
The kill
Where
zone.
there's just live, loud cabinets. Yes. What's the question?
So
The question is, do I remember that? Yes.
So when you're working, how can I say this? So when you're doing these shows, you focus on Jerry. That's the only thing you worry about.
On that gig, yes. On that gig, I'm very lucky that I just have to look after him. Like that's it. I stay in my lane. And so even like the mix that I'm listening to is like his mix. Plus it's his mix plus all the stage chatter between me and the monitor guy.
Okay.
You know?
Right.
And then if I talk into my microphone, only Jerry hears it. But the monitor guy will sometimes only I will hear it, or sometimes all three of us will hear it. But then the other chatter from the other stage technicians is generally not in my ears, but it's in the monitor guys. But if he talks, they all hear it if he wants to. If Jerry talks, everybody hears it. If I talk, only Jerry hears it, but only if I turn a switch on. Or sometimes I'll have him disable me to his ears so I can just talk to the monitor guy. There's very, you have to be mindful of who you're talking to sometimes.
Yeah, for sure, man. I was thinking.
You don't want to just be talking like on top of your guy trying to play a show.
No. I mean, especially if Jerry's doing.
Basically, I only talk if it's an emergency. I try to, on that gig.
There you go. Yeah, I was gonna ask that. Like, if Jerry's doing a solo, but you need to talk. I mean, you have to be.
No, you just don't. You don't talk while he's doing solo.
What do you think
Don't do that. Be like, hey, boss, you want a breath mint? Or like.
So I think that's it, man. Andres, you have any other questions? Someone out there?
Well, there's the last question is from Dusty Hirsch. And
I know Dusty Hirsch. Yes. Hi, Dusty.
Yeah, he's asking, what's the most memorable concert you were part of?
The most memorable concert I was ever part of. Let's just say it probably didn't have anything to do with the concert itself. It had nothing to do with the show. That, I mean, there's been, there's a lot of times, a lot of days when you're on the road are very Groundhog Day, very like ho-hum drum, the same shit every single day. I thought my hammock was about to collapse here. It's going to be really funny when this hammock breaks. It's like a lot of times it's very much the same day over and over, and you get kind of like in this Groundhog Day thing, and it's just very much like repetitive day after day after day. But then there's days sometimes that are so fucking amazing. Like we had a day one time where we played a festival in the Alps in Switzerland in this like up on like this mountain lake. It was like this little acoustic festival, and it was a little kind of like half round band shell tarped tent thing that pointed out on the lake, and it was 1,000,000 degrees. It was super, super hot, and everybody was sweaty, and it was just awful. And at the end of the day, we all went skinny dipping in this alpine lake, like jumping off this pier, just like drinking beer in the water as the sun went down, and like partied out there on the lake like all night in the dark. Just like an amazing, amazing day. Or like, I don't know, we had a day on the Corn tour last year where we got done super early by like 8:30 or 9 o'clock, and this place had like a pool with a bar where they were serving margaritas, and by the time Corn started playing, we'd already been floating in the pool. for like 20 minutes on like our second margarita, just like,
Wow.
you know, those kind of days are awesome. Just every now and then you have a super amazing.
Yeah, to enjoy everything.
Very lucky days. But that's
Great.
very, very few and far between.
Okay, brother. Well, ¿más preguntas hay?
What's that?
No, that's it.
No more question, brother.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, my man.
It was nice to meet you. And Joel, it's always good to talk to you.
I know.
And I don't know. I guess
We'll talk soon. We'll
like
talk
anybody
soon.
cares what I have to say. Thank you very much.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah, I think.
Well, no, it's thank you for having me. Thank you for and
Oh,
anybody out there.
thanks.
Thank you for listening. Yeah.
No,
Thanks for
we
coming.
love you. We love you, man, and you're always welcome to come to the show and or to the podcast and talk
You
about.
too. You too. You know you got carte blanche anytime I'm ever near you in any town.
Thanks, brother. Thanks.
I love you.
Yeah,
Talk soon,
hope to see you
Okay, go ahead.
and meet you in person soon.
Yes, hopefully we get to meet
Bye.
in person and hang out, do some cool stuff.
Yeah.
Sure.
A few beers.
Right. All right. We'll see you guys.
Perfect.
See you guys later.
Have a good day.
Gracias
Take
a
care.
todos. Thanks, everybody. We love you. Adiós, Andrés. Gracias.
Bye. Gracias.